Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's devotional. Our thought today is going to be just a short thought. It was something that I picked up on from a Facebook post that was posted a couple of days ago by a preacher of the Church of Christ. And the point of the post was very good. It was about the danger of abusing a spouse. His particular application was about men abusing their wives. And certainly that can go both ways, whether it's physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, it doesn't matter. It can go both ways, and certainly is something that we need to make sure that we remember what Paul says in Ephesians 5 about loving our spouse, as particularly the husband, loving the husband of his, loving his wife as his own body, and as Christ loved the church. And certainly that means we treat them appropriately with the appropriate respect and reverence that we should. But one of the statements towards the end of the post made this day, he was going on and talking about some of the details about abuse and the danger of abuse. But then he said, this happens in or on or near your pew. Or this is happening in or on or near your pew, or among people in your congregation, was his point. And I think, and I'm trying to give him benefit of the doubt here, I believe that his reason for saying that was simply to suggest that this could be happening to anybody and we may not know about it. And so just be aware of it and make sure you're conscious of not doing it yourself, certainly. However, my first reaction was that he's saying that I need to be on the lookout because there literally are brethren, men in my congregation who are in our congregation, who are actively abusing their wives. Now, I don't believe that. Okay, it could be happening and none of us are aware, but I don't believe that it is. And to suggest, and this Facebook post isn't the only time. There have been times I've seen particularly young preachers make very accusatory statements in a lesson or adult class, a sermon or whatever that they're doing, where they say things like, "And you all are guilty of this," or using that pronoun "you." And then connecting it in some kind of an accusatory way as if it's very generalized, all of you are doing this. And I have a real problem with that. And again, not necessarily, again, that it's more of a, hey, we really need to be aware of this, but it's almost as if sometimes individuals use that type of phrasing for shock factor, for, whoa, wow, he's accusing me, and I don't, first of all, I don't appreciate that because I don't think it's naive for me to believe that my brethren are treating their spouses properly. But secondly, there's nothing wrong with making that same point that we need to be aware of this danger, we need to be aware of what it can lead to and what it can ultimately cause and so forth, without accusing our brethren, first of all. And second of all, without giving me the thought process that the next time I go to worship, I should be looking around and thinking, okay, which men are abusing their wives? Because, this preacher said in his Facebook post, it's happening on or near your pew. So, obviously there are men here abusing their wives somewhere. And it lends itself to a very suspicious nature, accusatory, even overly critical, or overly analytical, maybe, of viewing and critiquing how people are treating one another, instead of the focus being on me, and first of all, worshiping God, and second of all, stirring up love and good works for my brethren. But to that end, though, it really stands in contrast to what Paul says here in 1 Corinthians 13 about love. He describes love suffering long and is kind, love doesn't behave rudely, and then here in verse 5, it thinks no evil. Now granted, certainly we shouldn't think evil personally because of our relationship to God. We don't fill our minds with things that are evil, we fill our minds with things that are good. But this is regarding one another. Every aspect of love that Paul uses here in 1 Corinthians 13 is about how love is shown to others, the character of love as it pertains to my relationship with others. it thinks no evil. And it's connected to bearing all things, believing all things, hoping all things, and enduring all things. It's not naive for me to believe that my brethren, my brothers and my sisters at our local congregation, are seeking to do what's right and are doing the best they can to be faithful. Does that mean they're perfect? No, I don't believe any of them or myself are perfect. Sometimes we stumble, but I do believe we are all trying to do what's right and to strive for perfection. Which is to say, I don't believe any of my brethren are living in a state of sin. However, the idea of an abusive relationship and the way again, this Facebook post kind of paints it as a overpowering, a seeking domination, that sort of thing. And again, the specific application was men abusing their wives. That's living in sin. And I again, not that I have confirmation specifically that all of our married brothers are treating their wives properly, but I don't believe that they are. But I certainly don't want to be told that, and I say not, I don't want to be told, I don't think I should be told to be looking for it in my congregation, because there's somebody guilty of it somewhere. You need to be looking for it. And that flies in the face of giving the benefit of the doubt to my brother and my sister. To give them the benefit of the doubt, and unless there is something that I observe specifically, or maybe somebody else observes and talks to me about, or talks to somebody else about, that would be something to look into. But again, even in that case, in Ephesians 4, Paul reminds the brethren to speak the truth in love. All right, we speak the truth. We don't sugarcoat it, but we can speak it in love. We can be diplomatic. We don't have to generalize. We don't have to be accusatory. And we certainly should not be seeking to make our brethren be suspicious of one another, or encourage our brethren to be hypercritical or hyper-analytical, hyper-observant of our brethren, as if we're just waiting to find something that they're doing wrong that we need to, jump on top of, like being abusive or something along that line. And it just again, I don't think that he meant to give the impression that he thinks that it's actually happening in every congregation. Maybe he actually does believe that, which would be a problem as well, I believe. But I think he was saying that simply to make the case that it could be happening and you don't know it. Well, that's true. There's a lot of things that could be happening and we don't know. However, love believes all things. Love thinks no evil of my brethren. And until there is something specific that happens or that is said, I'm going to think the best of my brethren. And we need to be aware of that, to make sure that when we look at each other, when we look at each other as individuals, as families, that we don't jump to a certain negative conclusion automatically, or that we don't just assume that an individual is guilty of this or that, maybe because I struggle with this or that. And certainly as individuals who teach maybe class or teach, certainly men who teach in the pulpit, we need to be very careful not to generalize, to accuse in a very broad way. That's not a way that's going to endear the word to individuals' ears when you're accusing them something, especially if they're, and as I believe, none of our brethren are guilty. You say, well, all of you are guilty of this, or some of you are guilty of this, and everybody starts looking around. Well, who? Well, I'm just assuming some are. Again, that lends itself to evil thoughts and accusatory, suspicious thought process, and we got to be careful of that. All right, that's the devotional for you today. Lord willing, our next day of the devotional will be on Thursday at 6:30. Hope to see you all then. Thank you, everybody.